So in this video, we're going to take a look at how people study for their Salesforce exams. So I'm going to break it up into two parts. The first part is how you set yourself up for success, and the second part is all about the more specifics on different ways people learn in Salesforce based on what I've seen from my 80,000 plus students that have taken my courses. So first we have setting you up for success. Now I always say that a goal without a plan is just a wish. So you need to have a plan on whatever you're doing so you can get to that goal. Now the first thing I think about is if you've been on my career challenge, my free career challenge, so you can kind of click the link and join and kind of go with that if you want. I kind of talk about understanding what your strengths and weaknesses are and your kind of personality traits, or personality types, and you can use that to make sure that you're being most effective in the way you learn and the roles you take. Now, my personality traits, my strengths and my weaknesses particularly, I get distracted and I procrastinate. And basically, these are the things, those weaknesses that are pulling my strengths down. So I like to, over the years, I've kind of focused on making sure that these don't distract me. And I've put a couple of different things in the pot to stop this from happening. So one of the things is, if I can find it, here it is, my mobile phone. I basically switch off all the notifications for basically everything on my phone. The only things I have notifications on for are text messages and obviously phone calls when they come in. Everything else is switched off. I still have social apps on here, but they're not basically interrupting me, and I'm not getting that FOMO, fear of missing out and wanting to jump in and seeing what that message is. I make sure I just have specific times of the day that I check my social media, which is usually walking on the way into work, making sure I don't get run over. So that's one thing I do. Second thing I do is basically just blocking out all the distractions. So I'll give you an example. I have this horrible nervous twitch. Basically, the nervous twitch is I go into my browser and I just go NEW and hit enter. It jumps to BBC News. You just saw it there. But I've got an app called Rescue Time on my phone that I've used forever, which basically blocks all those distracting sites. And you can add additional distracting sites if these, you need for work that, like Facebook, you might need for work, but they may consider distracting. So you kind of disable that and kind of things like this. But it's been brilliant for me because this nervous twitch that I just go NEWS without even knowing, I suddenly land on BBC News and I'm reading articles. But with this app, it's really helped me to kind of cut that out, or at least understand when it happens, which is half the battle. There are other apps you can get as well. So as I said, if you do need like Facebook as part of your work to reply to messages, there's apps that just basically stop the feed from working. So when you go to Facebook, your feed is just blank. So you don't get distracted from the feed. So you can just jump in straight to those messages or those ads or whatever you're doing, which is really handy. Another thing I do is I actually work in 13-week increments. So here is actually a photo of my wall in my kitchen, and I've actually just started a new 13-week cycle, so it's a bit blank at the moment, but I have this self-journal. Here it is, self-journal. Now you don't need to get this, there is a link in the show notes, but you can kind of create it yourself just using a blank notebook and a kind of a piece of paper, big piece of paper. But it comes with this kind of self-journal, and this is actually a spare one I've got. This is actually my real self-journal that I have here, but I have a spare one just in case once this runs out, I can just jump straight onto this one. But it comes with the journal, but also it comes with this poster. And this is the thing I kind of use a lot. So it basically at the top is setting your goal. So and a goal actually sometimes for me is maybe a couple of different things that I want to achieve in that 13-week period. It then, each row goes week by week, essentially. So at the start of the 13-week period, I set my goals at the top. I set a reward at the bottom. So if you're doing a certification, So it might be a reward for getting that certification and passing that certification, and your goal at the top is getting certified. I then mark out all the times I know I'm away or busy. Like weekends are usually just a no-go for me generally because I've got 2 kids. But then also start identifying the amount of time you're going to have each day. And if you've got specific amounts of time you can dedicate to learning. So, for example, I drop my kids off at nursery and then there's about a 2-second walk and I'm at my office. And I know that I've basically got an hour between 8 AM dropping them off and 9 AM when I kind of start working of doing some extracurricular learning or focusing on for a certification. So I know I've got an hour every day at least, and then usually an hour at the end of the day as well. So you now know what available time you have. Another thing I do actually in my house is I don't have a TV, so I don't get distracted in the evening. So then rather than watching TV, I may do a little bit more of learning or something like that. So I've worked out my plan. I don't plan this the whole 13 weeks. I just kind of know I've got those hours, and it's only at the beginning of the week I kind of focus in what I'm going to do that week and have an idea of my goal and that my goal will fit in this time. And as I'm going through, I'm just ticking off each day and seeing how scarily I'm getting closer to my goal and if I'm kind of following it. Because if you've got that goal in the sand, then it's great. And if you're doing a certification, what I always recommend is buy the certification, book it in for one of these days. So you have that goal, you've got money in the game, which is also another great driver. So I've got my plan, I've done my week plan for the start of the week, and then I dive into my journal. And my journal is basically at the beginning of the day, I plan out what my objectives are. So I've done kind of my top goals for my week, and now I want to do my daily goals. So I kind of set my daily targets, the goals, what I'm grateful for, what worked well today, what didn't work so well today, and kind of the score of what I'd give the day, how well it actually went. So yeah, and that kind of keeps me focused. Okay, so now on to the different ways of learning Salesforce for these certifications. Now, first, you really need to understand what type of learner you are. So you can be a visual learner where you kind of, when you look at maps and charts and diagrams and tables, they kind of mean stuff to do and you kind of learn a lot from just seeing one single picture. I'm very much like that. I want to see one picture that gives me a view of everything. I'm a very visual learner. Then there's auditory learner. So this is somebody who likes to listen on something. So this could be like listening to podcasts or listening to training videos, but with the audio, focused on audio. Then we've got the reading and writing learners, where you kind of like reading manuals almost, but also translating that into your own words and writing notes. And notes are kind of the key for you. And then finally, we have the kinesthetic learner. Now, back in my day, I was a ski and snowboard instructor, and a kinesthetic learner was somebody that felt when it was right, basically. They would know that if I put them in a specific position and said, hey, you need to be in this position at this point of the jump, when you're doing a jump, then they would kind of get it, and therefore that was the way they learned. Now, in the IT world or virtual world, I kind of think of this as more the actual doing and practicing and, okay, you've told me how to do an app or create an object. I'm going to go and do it and actually learn it and see how it all fits together for myself. So yeah, there's those different types of learning. So the visual, auditory, the reading and writing, and kinesthetic. I'm very much kind of the visual and kinesthetic type learner. But yeah, just kind of understand that so you know which ones you're going to kind of focus on. And I try with my with my courses, I am very visual, but I always put notes to the manual, say under the videos and things like that, so that you can go off and learn that way. Also, Salesforce has got Trailhead, where there's a lot of kind of go off into the org, do something and come back. So I put links to that as well. So different ways of learning. So students kind of do from my experience, loads of different ways. One, if you're kind of a visual learner, you could use or kind of reading and writing kind of learner, you could use flashcards. So you've written questions and then turn over and you write on the back the answer, and you kind of create your own set of flashcards. Or you could go to something like Quizlet on the internet, where people have created kind of Salesforce admin questions that you can ask and then flip the card over, get the answer, or it's a concept, flip the card over and you can understand where the use of that concept can be, things like that. It's quite good. Just be aware. And also you can, and there's a lot of the mock exams on the internet as well as in Quizlet and elsewhere on the internet. But I always warn everybody, if you're looking for mock exams and that's the way you learn, it's one way of learning, just keep on doing question after question after question. Ignore the answers, basically. Salesforce does 3 releases a year, and the moment a release comes out, those questions could be wrong. So, and also you don't know when the questions have been created sometimes. It could have been like years ago. And at that point in time, it was a perfectly right question. Whereas now it is completely wrong. Or it might be the person writing the question actually doesn't even get the right answer right anyway. I've seen that. And I've also seen just people writing really badly worded questions. And my students will post these questions to me going, what's the answer to this? I found this question on the internet. It just makes no sense at all. So my word of advice is look at the question and hide the answer. Try and figure out if you know the answer by just looking at the question. If you don't, go off and research it and actually try it out in your org. So you kind of get that, you've kind of read it, you've learned it, and you've reinforced it by going into your trial org, your dev org, to kind of practice it. So that's one way of doing it. Another thing, which is a great motivator, is find a study group. Go to your local Trailblazer community group and ask, hey, anybody interested in getting admin certified or sales consultant certified or whichever certification it is, do you want to join a study group so we can help each other out and kind of continue it on, which is great. Another thing is you can make a song. I've seen somebody in the community makes a song out of Salesforce. It's a way they learn, which is another thing. And also just rewriting things, which I kind of mentioned earlier. So you've seen a diagram, you've seen a concept, just write it out in your own words. And actually in some certifications that I take, like I remember TOGAF 9, which is an enterprise architecture certification, I actually came up with a 1-pager diagram and notes all over that I could completely recreate in the exam. So rather than doing the online in your house exam, this was going to the test center, and you have a period of time before the exam actually starts to dump your knowledge onto a bit of paper, and then you hit start and you do your exam, but you've got this reference paper basically to refer to as you're going through. And this, for certain exams, I love to do. It's basically that reinforced, oh yeah, that is correct, great, I am on the right page, because it had a kind of formulaic structure to it that I could replicate on a bit of paper. The other thing to do is, so we've got mock exams. So Salesforce also offers official mock exams. So if you look on the exam guide, for your respected exam, some of them do have a free mock exam that you can take. There's also paid for mock exams from Salesforce. So, and that's in the same way you go and book your real exam, just look for the mock exam in there as well. And they're usually I think it's about $20 or so to take the mock exam. Another thing is Trailhead. So Trailhead has got hundreds of modules on everything you could possibly need, but make sure if this is the way you're going to learn, that the Salesforce exam guide for your particular certification is your Bible. It's your sheet, your crib sheet to understand this is what I have to learn. Do not get distracted by all the shiny things in Trailhead, chatbots and stuff like that if it's not part of the exam. Be absolutely ruthless and focused on those things that you need to know for the exam. But also there is another way you can learn, and that is by buying a course online. So I do online training for students, and I try and include everything for visual learners, textual learners, but also collaboration so you can learn from each other. And if you want to learn more about that, dive to admin2architect.com, or if you want to go on my Salesforce Career Challenge, then head to admin2architect.com/challenge. So I hope that was useful. If you do have any questions or you want me to talk about something else, then please let me know. Otherwise, I look forward in seeing you in another video. So ta-ta from me.